everyone, it's Jason Shadrick, and we are at the NAMM show in Anaheim with Corey from Vox, and we are going to talk about some new Vox amps, some heads and combos here. So first thing we're going to do is talk about this one we just heard on the intro. Tell us a little about this little guy sitting behind us.
Yeah, so the AV amp series, really the most important thing to know about it, Jason, is it's an all analog amp. So normally when we think of modeling amps, we think of digital modeling amps that if I dial in one particular personality, it's going to give me a preset EQ, it's going to give me kind of all the bells and whistles, and a romanticized version of that amp. These AV series are all analog, so whenever I select one of the 8 amps available, I'm getting kind of a personality, but it's not one particular amp that we would know from history. Sure. It's just really more of kind of like an archetype, right? So we've got a couple of cleans, a couple of crunches, a couple of overdrives, and then some high gain stuff as well.
What was the setting you were playing on the intro?
What I was just playing was one of the crunch settings, and if there was one that had an amp personality, those were kind of the AC15, AC30 kind of thing. So analog signal path in the amp selector, what you see is what you get EQ, so if you goose the mid-range, it's going to be goosed across all of the amps. The only thing digital on the whole thing are the 3 effects, so there's modulation, delay, and reverb. Yeah. It's actually got a 12AX7 in the preamp section, 12AX7 in the power amp section, so all of the reactiveness with the player and with the speaker itself is coming from those 2 tubes right there.
So let's hear a couple other sounds you have in here.
Yeah, for sure. So if we go something that's kind of on the cleaner side, but I dig in a little bit, you can see how the amp responds to the player's touch. So even the clean settings are going to respond like a louder amp would as they start to break up a little bit. If we go to some of the more overdrivey kind of things, now we get some of that kind of classic half stack crunch. And then you can always get the Madison Square bedroom tones, you know. So it has a lot of stuff available to you, and again, the amp is really responsive to how the player is going to lean into it or pull back a little bit. It's an all sealed enclosure as well. So if you were to turn the whole thing around, it's all totally sealed, and we're actually dropping the chassis in from the top. So everything about it's kind of visceral and resonant, and again, it just responds to a player. It's a straightforward analog amp.
So we have how many different versions of this? We have 3?
3 different versions. We have an AV15, an AV30, and an AV60. So an 8-inch speaker, a 10-inch speaker, and a 12-inch speaker.
And what would be the prices on this on this line?
I believe the map on these is going to be $229, $329, and $429.
And when do you expect these to be available?
I believe the end of March.
So these are kind of the new things, but we also are bringing back some old, more classic-looking Vox amps.
Definitely.
So tell us about the heads we have over here.
Now, this is one of the things that I'm most excited about. We love the AC30. We love the AC15. I mean, as guitar players, that really is kind of like we look at like the big 3 of amps, and the AC30's got to be out there somewhere. The problem with an AC30 is that, 1, it's really heavy, and 2, you got to get it cooking to really let it do what it does well. The thing about the AC15 and AC30 heads for 2016 is they've added onboard attenuation, Jason. So now an AC30 has a 3-way switching back. I can do 30 watts, I can do 3 watts, or 1/3 of a watt. So you have an AC30 at 1/3 of a watt, and we get everything we love about it, but you can have it in an apartment. You and I could be talking over it right now. Yeah. Same thing with an AC15. You get a nice chimey and crunchy amp that has a lot of top end. It's great in a band setting. But if you really need to cook it a little bit, you can do that and bring it down to either 15 watts at full power, 1.5 watts, or 1/6 of a watt. Both of those sit on top of 212 open back cabs. These are loaded with greenbacks right now, so it's just a really versatile rig, and you don't need to haul in a 70 or 80 pound amp and have it loud enough to explode people's eyeballs, you know?
And do you know when price and availability will be on these models?
Those I'm not quite sure. I believe it was $899 and $699 on the heads, but please don't quote me on that. I'm just a dumb guitar player.
So where can people go online to find all the correct information about Vox amps?
People live online at voxamps.com. Yeah.
All right, Corey, thank you so much, man. Why don't you play us out with a couple bit?
For sure.